Zhu Zheng's gaze looked towards Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi, let's start with you. The gazes of the crowd shifted to Zhang Yi's side. Zhang Yi coughed and stood up without haste. Since I've been asked to speak first, I'll say a few words. Zhang Yi briefly told the crowd the results of yesterday's discussion among the four of them. The success or failure of the operation was at stake, so he had barely concealed anything except for his own abilities. The most crucial thing, I think, is to thoroughly map out the abilities of the entire Eclipse Moon group. In particular, find a way to, crack their intelligence-gathering methods. That's all I have to say, over. Zhang Yi sat down after he finished speaking. After he finished speaking, many people on the scene bowed their heads in deep thought, pondering over what Zhang Yi had said. Even Deng Shintong was holding his chin with one hand in a contemplative manner. Zhu Jing nodded approvingly towards Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi's analysis is correct. The most important thing in our war with the Eclipse Moon is intelligence. At this point, we are currently unclear about the other party's source of intelligence, so we are at a slight disadvantage. Zhu Zheng's voice suddenly became high-spirited. However, we are at an absolute advantage in other aspects. Whether it's the strength of the mutants, numbers, or logistical assistance for local battles. He crossed his arms and smiled confidently. The most crucial of all, there is also the armed assistance of our region. The crowd could not help but look at Zhu Zheng. Wu Shifang inquired with a blazing gaze. Are you planning to utilize thermal weaponry and carry out a precision missile strike? Nowadays, a missile was one of the most important strategic weapons. Its power was something that could crush nearly all existing mutants. However, due to the end times, its production line was almost cut off, and one could only rely on the remaining inventory to fight. Thus it was impossible for region-level leaders to use it easily. Zhang Yi and the others for a while now were also curious as to why the region haven't used missiles to strike the Eclipse Moon group. Zhu Jing seemed to understand the doubts in the hearts of the crowd. He explained, Eclipse Moon has a satellite jamming device in its hands. Although our nebula system can roughly determine the area they are in, it cannot accurately pinpoint their location. Lan Xincheng reminded, they can affect satellite detection within a 5-kilometer radius. Zhu Jing nodded, that's right, 5 kilometers. Trying to shower a 5-kilometer radius with missiles is indeed difficult. But don't worry, this time we have prepared something else. We guarantee that we can give them a huge surprise. Afterwards, the captain of the second team, Shuofeiyu, also stood up and delivered the results of their team's research. He said, combined with the loss of the first battle, we summarized that the most important lesson is that we cannot divide our troops. Even if we split into 3 teams, we must make sure that the distance between each other does not exceed 2 kilometers. And it needs to be established that in the event that one team encounters an eclipse moon, the other 2 teams must support them as soon as possible. There's no need for us to let the other side lead us by the nose. Since what they specialize in is gathering intelligence, they will target the abilities of each group and send out mutants to counter and restrain us. Then, we can also switch our opponents promptly based on the battlefield situation. These words made Zhang Yi's eyes immediately light up. However, to be able to pinpoint the key points of the failure of the first battle and give a method to deal with it, it was clear that his mind was not simple. Swapping opponents? This method is rather wonderful. Zhang Yi could not help but murmur in a low voice. In the middle of the first battle, one of the major reasons why the 10 mutant teams were wiped out so quickly was because the captain's abilities were suppressed. As for Eclipse Moon's 13 men, all of them were vicious people who had traveled across the Kanto, and were also the best of the best at the Delta level. So the first battle could basically be viewed as Eclipse Moon's battle against the 10 Delta-level Outer City mutants. Zhang Yi had some feelings in his heart. If Eclipse Moon really possessed that type of incredible intelligence-gathering ability, then to what extent could his own abilities be probed? In Zhu Zheng's mind, he even started to consider adding this clause to the plan for action. He nodded at Shuofeiyu, your proposal is very good, I will consider it. Shuofeiyu nodded, then slowly sat down. Zhu Jing then looked towards the third team's captain, Wu Shifang. Wu Shifang, next, it's your turn, tell us the results of your team's discussion. Wu Shifang proposed a more cautious course of action. Wu Shifang's suggestion was, send 10,000 soldiers to blockade Jiangning Square. Each one is equipped with origin bullets. Then force them to come out through bombardment with heavy weapons. This way, they'll either have to endure the bombardment of heavy weapons, or they'll come out and face an attack by tens of thousands of soldiers utilizing origin bullets. I believe that even the most powerful mutants could not withstand such a battle, right? After hearing Wu Shifang's words, the scene fell into a silence. The people at the headquarters looked at him with unusually odd eyes. Lan Xincheng had already said what was in the hearts of the crowd. That is an impossible task. He pushed up his glasses and looked at Wu Shifang. Do you think that the manufacturing of origin bullets is that easy? Even in the Jiangnan region headquarters, there are only a handful of special forces that can be equipped with these kinds of bullets. And there's a limit to the supply. Let alone 10,000 people, even 1,000 soldiers equipped with origin bullets is impractical. That's why your proposal wouldn't work at all. Wu Shifang's face was a bit ugly as he clenched his fists and said in a deep voice, however, just relying on a few dozen of us might not be enough to wipe out all of Eclipse Moon. It's better to have more people. A sharp glint flashed across Xu Zheng's eyes. How could he not be aware of what Wu Shifang had said? But Wu Shifang simply didn't understand that today's Jiangnan region didn't have that much manpower either. Even the 6 investigation squads had 4 of them out on missions today. Jiangning City was Wu Shifang's territory, and it was understandable that he was nervous and worried. However, it was impossible for the Jiangnan region to concentrate all of their forces on dealing with Eclipse Moon. Xu Jing spoke slowly, this time, our purpose is to destroy the Eclipse Moon organization. He turned his words around, however, it may not be necessary to destroy them all at once. These guys are very cunning and have been playing hide and seek with us. They were able to run from Linhai City to Jiangning City, so it's possible that they'll escape to other areas next. Surrounding and annihilating them will require mobilizing at least 10 times their strength. This is equivalent to having the entire Jiangnan region, the top mutants from every city, gather together. By doing that, we risk being attacked by other external groups. Sun Tzu's Art of War had this to say, therefore, the way to use an army is to surround it with 10, attack it with 5, divide it with a few, fight it if it's an enemy, flee it if it's few, and avoid it if it's not. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will not be in danger in hundreds of battles. Wu Shifang was a bit anxious. What do you mean then? Xu Jing said, first crush them in one fell swoop. Fight head-on and break down their organization. Figure out their bottom line. This way, even if we can't finish them off in one go, we can still break their arrogance. Don't forget, we're fighting on home soil. A continuous war of attrition is in our favor. Our troops and resources will constantly be replenished from the rear, while their number is merely 13, and it will get less and less the more they fight. So this battle, the further we fight, the better it will be. Xu Jing was a military man, his thinking was strategic. From the very beginning, he never thought that he had to annihilate everyone in Eclipse Moon in one fell swoop. It was certainly a good wish, but it was too difficult to realize. Eclipse Moon wouldn't be foolish enough to come over and play with the people of Jiangnan region knowing that they couldn't beat them. Deng Shintong, who was sitting at the bottom, listened to Xu Zheng's words, and a flash of impatience flashed among his eyes. He hugged his arms and leisurely said, perhaps there is a simpler way for us to do this. That is, to directly take out their leader. As long as we take out the Wolf King, then the wolves will scatter as fast as possible. The first time Deng Shintong spoke, he drew everyone's attention. There was no way around it. In this operation, Heavenly God Squad was the undisputed main force. And this captain-level figure was also the #1 combatant of this operation in plain sight. Commander Zhu smiled. He had always been very clear about Deng Shintong's character, which was this reckless and arrogant. But each and every time, Deng Shintong was able to complete his mission with outstanding results. Commander Zhu liked this type of young man, with fighting spirit and drive. Lan Xinqiang, the secretary next to Zhu Zheng, spoke up. For Eclipse Moon's group leader Phoenixren, the information we have is very limited. Even in Kanto, his personal information is sealed. As a preliminary estimate, this person's combat power shouldn't be below that of the captain of the 6 investigation squads. That's why the difficulty of trying to complete a decapitation mission on him is extremely high. Of course, if Captain Deng can do this, it will greatly cut down the schedule of our expedition. Deng Shentong's head tilted, his long silver hair cascading down. Ah, just leave this matter to me. Confidence filled his eyes. It wasn't arrogance or conceit, it was just a clear perception of his own strength. As long as the prey is marked by me, none of them can escape. Now, he's already a dead man. Deng Shentong said in a soft tone. This confident tone caused the smile on Zhu Zheng's face to intensify. Only opposite Deng Shentong, Bai Li Changqing, who was a member of the combat command team, had a somewhat complicated expression. He, who had been promoted to captain, didn't have the same level of confidence as Captain Deng Shentong to say such words. This was the gap between the levels of strength. Once Deng Shentong spoke, the others basically had nothing more to say. The situation was rather stark, and everyone was basically clear that it was just a matter of exploring the details of the battle. Then, does anyone have any other questions? If not, let's get straight to the point and talk about tomorrow's battle plan. Zhu Zheng swept a glance at the crowd, and there was nothing for anyone to say. The 13 mutants in the outer city knew in their hearts that they were fighting as supports, and the main battle force was still the Heavenly God Squad. So their biggest role was to draw out Eclipse Moon's main force and to create opportunities for Heavenly God Squad. Zhu Zheng signaled Lan Xinqiang to tell the plan to the crowd. Lan Xinqiang cleared his throat, and then spoke out the plan they had drafted long ago. It was only for today's discussion that some additional details were added. And the time for the operation was also set, at 2 o'clock tomorrow morning. This was the time when people entered into a deep sleep, and it was also the time when they were the most tired and most likely to reveal their cracks. The urgency of the time was something that Zhang Yi hadn't even thought of. He glanced at the satellite phone and it was now 3:57 p.m., which meant that in a little over 10 hours, they would be departing for Jiangning City to carry out their mission. Lan Xinqiang followed the predetermined program and told the 3 teams about the mission. The area that the other party is currently operating in is the Jiangning Plaza in the center of Jiangning City. It's one of the busiest commercial neighborhoods in the area, and they've used a technology that shields them from satellite detection, making it impossible for us to monitor them in real time. At that time, we will first bombard the entire Jiangning Plaza in all directions. Afterwards, your 3 teams will act as the vanguard and slowly approach Jiangning Plaza from 3 directions. While waiting for the enemy to appear, your task will be to stall them and engage in a tangle with them. The rest will be left to the main force, this time Heavenly God Squad. As for the specific details of the mission, Lan Xinqiang only skimmed over them. This was also to prevent the leakage of information and avoid a situation similar to the first battle. After Lan Xinqiang finished speaking, he looked at the crowd and once again inquired, "Any more questions?" Xiao Lingling sneered and hugged her arms full of disinterest. The others all had similar expressions. Regarding their positioning, they were very clear and had long been mentally prepared. But so what if they were the bait? As long as this mission was successful, the benefits they could receive were quite considerable. Combat Minister Tu Yunlai slowly stood up and said in a deep voice, "For the sake of this battle, the headquarters has equipped you with specialized armaments. Please come with me to receive it later." He paused and emphasized again, "It's the special armament used by the Yanyan army." When Zhang Yi and the others heard this, a look of curiosity and anticipation flashed in their eyes. Everyone! Zhu Zheng stood up, and the others stood up one after another. Zhu Zheng's face was serious, as if it was a piece of raw black iron. This battle is about the reputation of our Jiangnan region and the honor of our country. Therefore, I ask all of you to fight hard to kill the enemy and make sure to slaughter this group of Ronin to the end. The crowd replied in unison, "Yes, sir."